right now by our sports director from 93.7 The Fan, Jeff Hathhorn. Good morning to you, Jeff.
Good morning, Adam.
Jeff, what the hell's going on with Pickens?
Oof. You hear that live, you hear it again, and then just to hear it for a fourth or fifth time, it just makes no sense. Like, how is a 23-year-old who's your best receiver not on the field more often in a game where you ended up throwing it more than you ran it? It's one thing maybe if you have a game where you're just slugging it out and you're having success running the ball, and all you want to do is run three times, have another blocking receiver. But, man, it makes no sense. I'm anxious to hear if there's a little more clarity today from Mike Tomlin, because it just makes no sense.
And then the All-22 comes out yesterday, and it doesn't really look like Pickens is giving max effort. A couple of running plays where he's not really engaging, which is a pretty big tell. Also looks like he's going 65, 70% on some of these passing routes. And so I wonder how you're seeing it, Jeff, and you had the bird's eye view at the game that bled into yesterday morning. Is George Pickens struggling because it's a function of the offense, or is the offense struggling in part because George Pickens isn't buying in?
I don't know if the offense is struggling because George isn't necessarily buying in. To the naked eye, when you watch it, there's nothing that sees him just kind of jogging on something or not getting back to the huddle in time. I will say this. A few of us noticed when he came off the field after Connor Hayward's touchdown, George came off the field and just slumped in a seat by himself. I mean, everybody's celebrating a touchdown to try to win that game, and he's just slumped in a seat by himself. He twice then later came over to the bench and would sit down, and as he sat down, the players that were sitting at the bench got up and left.
Used to happen to me at the lunch table in high school, Jeff.
Yeah, I sat so far back that no one wanted to go back there anyway.
That's right.
Yeah, it's like, I want to ask this girl to homecoming. I'm going to go sit by her, and then she immediately gets up.
Never a good sign.
No, it's probably not going to happen. There's some kind of disconnect. Listen, receivers, this isn't new to the receiver position. This isn't new to Pittsburgh. But what is different is this. When AB did it and had these type of tantrums, there was Marquise Pouncey. There was Ben Roethlisberger. They had experienced people on the offensive side that, if not could handle it, could deal with it. Let's see how this younger group is able to deal with some of this, because, if you're a young quarterback like Justin, or you're a quarterback that may be making a debut like Russ, you need to have George in lockstep with you.
No doubt about it. Do you think, putting on your predictor cap here, Jeff, that Mike Tomlin will announce that Russell Wilson's the starter today in his press conference?
No, but I think the light will be on for him to start, or something of that regard. Some catchy phrase, meaning that they're going to see how the week plays out and how Russ practices, because he was able to do more last week. He got into some team drills. It wasn't just him, 7-on-7 or doing something on the side. He was in there for some team stuff. So there was a step forward. I want to see him move around. That's nice. But let's see him in a moving pocket. Obviously, they're not going to hit the quarterback in practice, but something a little more. But I think the light's going to be left on for potential. And then, Mike's going to say, we'll make that decision, at the end of the week.
Steelers coming off of the worst performance so far from Justin Fields. Jeff Hathhorn, our guest, our sports director, with us here on the Fan Morning Show. Because it's coming off of Justin's worst game, and we're seeing what's going on with George Pickens, he's probably going to be okay. Pickens is, with a quarterback change, if there is one. How do you think that's going to land on the rest of the guys, Jeff?
I think they like Justin. But, much like when you're 3-0, how do you make a change? Well, now you have 2 straight losses. So maybe that opens the door a little bit for them to be more open to another look. And these guys have been with Russ. They've been together for these quarterbacks for the same amount of time, but they haven't seen what Russ can do. There might be a curiosity of like, hey, we've seen some things in practice. I wonder how this would play out in a game. And that doesn't mean that they have any. I have not seen one thing where they have a negative thought towards Justin, but I don't think there'll be a revolt after 2 losses if they were to make a change.
Mm-hmm. We're going to talk about this later on in the show. Colin Cowherd, he's one of the few national guys who does go after Mike Tomlin, and he said the Steelers are like the flip phone, outdated the way that they play. And I do think there's a lot of truth in that and kind of zigging. Well, go ahead.
No, I think this is important to note. When the Steelers had, and this is not to defend Mike, because I agree with some of what Colin's saying there, but when they had the personnel to play up tempo, remember it was, 10 years ago when the Steelers had a situation where people were complaining they weren't running the ball enough because they were using, the young money family, that they wanted those guys to be out there and they were utilizing those skills and they were throwing the ball more because that's the group that they had. So I don't think Mike is unwilling to do something, based on the talent they have. They brought in somebody to accent what they have around them right now. Maybe that was a mistake. Maybe you go Cade Bell and blow it up and bring in something new. Maybe that would have been the better play. But I do think Mike likes to play conservative offense, especially when you have that kind of money invested in defense. But when they hired Arthur, they kind of continued, all right, we're going to draft to continue this style.
Well, and I think they could play the style more effectively, too, if their offensive line was what they envisioned it to be, but they've dealt with so many injuries. If you had your full complement of running backs, if they were able to land a Brandon Ayuk, perhaps a Devontae Adams. I do think that the personnel that is on the roster is better than the personnel that they're playing. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, and Adam, you think about that game on Sunday night. If they had Patterson, if they had Jaylen Warren, how different might that game have turned out just with one of those two in the lineup? You mentioned, it wasn't a good first game for Isaac Seumalo. That's going to improve. They're going to get better on that line. As they get these guys back, they should improve on offense. But you're right, the quarterback question. And then, how George buys in, we'll see. We did not have an opportunity to talk to him. He did not want to talk after the game on Sunday. Did not want to talk during, or wasn't available during open locker room yesterday. So not that George says much, but it'll be interesting to get his thoughts after, what happened against Dallas.
Jeff, the Penguins start up tomorrow, and Kyle Dubas spoke yesterday, and I did not listen or watch the entire press conference, but I was combing through some clips this morning, and the one thing that stuck out to me was that this is going to be a fun and exciting year, but I didn't hear that the expectations were all that high from him. That was, I don't know if alarming is the right word, but man, is that such a shift from where they've been. Why should Penguins fans believe, if the GM's not coming out saying the goals to make the playoffs, that this team can make the playoffs?
See, I looked at it the other side as not being alarming, but in terms of them finally being realistic. Like, they're not elite anymore. They're not a playoff team anymore. You miss it once, okay, that's just a blip. You miss it twice, that's the start of a trend. And what he said is what I liked what he said is that they need to go back and earn it. They need to bring that hard work, do the things that made them good. And he talked about the young core and having this young core of players listening to the Crosby, Malkins, Letangs, and that group. I think that's encouraging, but I think that's as realistic as I've heard a Penguins general manager in a couple of years about, okay, we're scraping to get into the playoffs again. We want, I think he put it, we want to play meaningful games in March and April and beyond. Not exactly we want to win a championship, but I think there's some good realization in what he was saying, that if they take that mindset, he said it wasn't a narrative that nobody's picking them to be in the postseason. but you kind of sense that maybe it is. Maybe that's something they're working towards. Bottom line is, if they don't fix that power play, it doesn't matter what they say.
That's right.
If they fix the power play, they've got a chance to be in the playoffs, because you look at the last 2 years, the power play was it was embarrassing.
I think that is dead on. 29th in the league last year, 13th the year before we thought was a disaster, and we thought that it could get better, and then it was pretty much the worst power play in the league. I do think if they fix that, they make the playoffs, but I'm going to need to see the puck go in before I can predict that with any kind of confidence. What else we got going on the website, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, you could listen to some of what Dubas said on the website right now. Obviously, stuff on what's going on with George. There's some good quotes from the game that are on the website right now, and obviously and also, I know it's your favorite topic, Pitt football being ranked, and what Pat Narduzzi said of why he believes them all buying in has led to where they're at, and how people are being unselfish on that team, and no one's moping after somebody scores a touchdown. So he feels like that's going right for them. So all of that's on the website, and obviously we'll be at Tomlin today.
Interesting. You were allowed to be happy when your teammate scores. I'm going to write that one down. Jeff, thanks a lot, buddy. We'll talk to you on Thursday. Thank you.
Thanks, Adam.
Jeff Hathhorn, our sports director. He'll be at the Tomlin press conference